Hello students, we're going to be I will be reading this story, The Spice Trade, to you. I just wanted to reiterate, we're going to be continuing Unit 6, Week 1. And if you recall, the essential question last week was, how have people used natural resources? How have people used natural resources? And we had used an example of beekeepers and how the beekeeper builds special hives that protect the bees and the queen bee and the environment that the bees like, which in return gives us the bees pollinate the crops, which in turn gives us what we need, and especially honey. So I'm going to continue with the essential question again. How have people used natural resources? And I'm also going to talk about some comprehension strategies or to ask and answer. Asking questions and using evidence to answer them helps you think and deeply understand the text better, especially its informational text, which is what we're going to be talking about. You're going to also be reiterating the comprehension skill, which is the main idea, key details. Again, if you recall, the main idea is the most important point that an author makes about a topic. Text has an overall main idea. Each paragraph will have an overall a main idea along with key details to support the main idea. Okay? And so to determine the main idea, you should identify details within that section and ask yourself, what do these details have in common? And what is the connection between the details? So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and talk about the genre here. In this case, the genre is expository text. Right here, as you can see, expository text. So expository text represents information and explains using factual details. It can include technical terms and that explains the concept and the process of something. Okay, so that would be the genre, which is informational text, expository text. If you think about the word expose, this is basically what that means, expose. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to begin reading this story to you, and then I'm going to give you some homework where you will be answering questions. So let's go ahead and continue with The Spice Trade by David Murphy. So as you can see, when you look at this, they have the essential question, how have people used natural resources? Your genre. We're going to have some vocabulary in here. The strategy that we're utilizing in the skills are ask and answer questions, main idea, key details, vocabulary strategy is Latin roots. So we're going to go ahead and begin reading. I will read, you follow along. This is the introduction, and the introduction, as you can see, is nice and bold there. These days, people do not think much about an everyday food item such as pepper. It is available everywhere, and it is used in many of the meals we eat. However, many centuries ago, spices such as pepper were very rare. They were valued as high as gold, and people searched far beyond the known world for them. Some explorers were even willing to risk their lives. I'm going to pause it right there, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to think about and just kind of reflect and view the first paragraph. Maybe take some notes, please. Okay, now moving on to the next. Spices are a good example of how the demand for natural resources can have a huge effect on people all over the world, and even on the course of history. This impact is controlled by three significant principles: supply, the amount available; demand, the amount people want; and price, how much people pay. And here's a picture of someone purchasing some products. Spices that were once rare can now be found in any supermarket. So I'm going to go ahead and pause that and allow you to write down some key details, and maybe possibly you've already picked out the main idea from this particular introduction in the second paragraph. Moving on to page 3. For example, when the latest cell phone comes out, there are not enough to go around. There is a lot of demand, but supplies are low, so prices are high. Not as many people want the old model. There is more supply than demand for the old model, so its price is lower. Often there is a balance between the supply of something and the demand for it. Prices settle to a level that is good for both the seller and the buyer. The history of the spice trade shows how these ideas of supply and demand work. I'll let you look at that. Go ahead and reflect. And go ahead and write down your information. Chapter 1, A Reason for Discovery. Black pepper starts as tiny berries on a vine. The berries are collected and dried. Spices are a natural resource. They usually grow on trees or bushes in hot tropical climates. They have a very long history. In 2600 BCE, the Egyptians fed spices to the people who were building the Great Pyramids. They thought spices would give the workers strength. I'm going to go ahead and pause it here, giving you an opportunity to write down and take notes. You're looking for details, key details. Okay, paragraph 2. Some great explorations began because people were looking for spices. These include the first voyage around the southern tip of Africa, the first voyage around the world, and Columbus's journey to the Americas. How did spices become so important? To find out, we need to look at the story of spices from the beginning. I'm going to go ahead and give you an opportunity to read on that page. Take some notes. Most spices used to come from a group of islands known as the Spice Islands. These islands are now part of Indonesia. Others came from Calicut, which is on the southwest coast of India. Merchants from India and the Spice Islands brought pepper, cloves, nutmeg, mace, and ginger to the Middle East. They carried these spices in canoes right across the Indian Ocean to Africa. It would have been a dangerous journey. Traders also traveled over land by camel to get to Turkey. So I'm going to give you an opportunity here to view this map as well, and I can pause it and you take your notes. Moving on, the main centers for the spice trade were Alexandria in Egypt and Constantinople, now called Istanbul, in Turkey. From these cities, traders carried spices throughout North Africa and the Middle East and into Europe. European customers wanted these precious natural resources. Arab traders in North Africa and the Middle East benefited from this demand by carefully controlling supplies. They kept prices high. Robbers, poor roads, and slow transport made trade between Europe and the Middle East difficult during the Middle Ages. And then in 1453, the Ottoman Turks conquered Constantinople and the roads into Europe were closed. I'm going to pause there and give you an opportunity to take notes. Again, you're looking for key details. Okay, let's read this excerpt here. How expensive were spices? A skilled builder in ancient Rome would have had to work for 5,000 days to earn enough to buy 1 pound of ginger. This is almost 19 years of work. And by 1875, it would have taken the same builder just over 1 day to earn enough to buy that amount. Go ahead and take notes, students. Okay, and in this picture we have explorer named de Gama's route to India in 1498. It took Vasco da Gama 10 months to reach India in 1498. 10 months, and it shows his route. After that, the only route to Europe for spices was by sea. The city of Venice in Italy controlled the shipping routes. It also controlled the distribution of spices. The Spanish and Portuguese looked for an alternative route from Europe to Asia. In 1498, Vasco da Gama sailed around the southern tip of Africa and reached India. The new sea route opened the spice trade to competition. Portuguese explorers brought spices back from Asia. In the Portuguese city of Lisbon, the price of pepper fell to 1/5 the price paid in Venice. Now, I'd like you to go ahead, students, and take more notes. Make sure you identify some key details on this page. Okay, students, I wanted to just share with you a few things that you may be familiar with, a spice. So here we have onion powder. Now, onion powder may be considered a spice, but it's actually powdered from an onion. An onion is like a vegetable. Now, garlic. Garlic is, again, it comes from a clove. When you purchase it fresh, a garlic clove is pressed into garlic powder. Now, this particular thing's right here, this is ginger. This is turmeric. These are fresh spices that I actually put in my juices in the morning. This right here is called a bay leaf. It's an actual leaf, and you put it in your food and you cook with it, and it flavors it. This could be considered a spice that probably was very, very expensive. If any of you are familiar with it, it's cinnamon. This is a cinnamon stick. This particular thing is it sweetens anything, especially arroz con leche. This particular spice is used in a lot of Asian dishes, the star of anise. And it actually is shaped, when you look at it, they're shaped like stars, which are pretty cool, and they are very strong, but they're a wonderful, wonderful spice for your soups and stuff. This right here is ground ginger. So if you look at it, it looks kind of like yellow. Not like this particular ginger. And I love this ginger. Many of you are familiar with this. This right here is oregano. Oregano is used in a lot of Italian food. Okay? Oregano. And this, last but not least, is one of my favorites, and yours too. These are called red chili flakes. They spice up anything. I could not imagine not having my red chili flakes, especially for my pizza, my pasta, my eggs, everything that requires red chili flakes. Those are just a few things, students, that I want you to think about when it comes to spices, and it comes to what we're talking about here, and the spice trade, and how valuable a lot of these things are. And you think about it, chili powder, all of that wonderful stuff that we used to cook with today was brought over to us and shared from other countries. Thank you.